Hey everyone, my name is Derek Barnick, and I'm going to be going over a guide on what I think the best strategy for the BSG game is. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of you are going to be disappointed. I hope you don't leave the video, but I'm going to tell you right up front, truthfully and honestly, the BSG game does not have a single best strategy. Now, I have found through research that there are certain things that most of the best companies in the world, because I found my data from the Best-Strategy Invitational, which I'll show you where I got that data from, what those companies did to beat their competitors. But unfortunately, if you're looking for what do I do step by step by step, all the numbers I need to put in, all this stuff. Unfortunately, there's if any video says that you can do that, they're they're lying. It's not how it works. It's not how BSG works. Every game is different, based on different variables of the competition, who you're competing against. Like it all changes, and every specific situation is different. But there are things that I have found, I believe, some correlation. Now, I can't guarantee it, but this is just some patterns I found in the top companies and what they did. And I think this is going to be very helpful for you to hopefully beat your competition and get a good grade in your class. So let's get started and kind of look at where I found this data, and then I'm going to show you some really cool stuff that I found during research, and we'll get into it. So first, where I found the data, you're going to go to the best strategy, you go to the home page, and then go to view invitational, and you're going to go to past competitions, and this is where you're going to see all the past competitions for the past 15 years. Now, a lot of it's going to be outdated. I primarily looked at August of 2020, May of 2020, and December, and you could probably go back to August or May of 19. But if we go to August, so where I found the data was I viewed the FIR, Footwear Industry Report, of all of the top companies. So we can see here that ASOLs was the top company for this year, and they had a weighted average score of 96. And we can look at their patterns. So you might notice if they have all yellows, where in this case they did not have very good yellows throughout most of it. They didn't have the highest weighted average score, which when you're scoring for your game, quick over this, the most important thing for your long-term strategy is to have a high weighted average of EPS. So you need to make sure you're trying to get a really high scores throughout all 10 years for EPS. Return on equity, you want high scores in all 10 years if you can. Even if you get some really, really high scores and you have some low, of course it's an average. But having the highest average is really important. One correlation or one thing I found a pattern in was almost all the time the winning company had the highest stock price at the last year, because that's all that matters is the last year for the score. Stock price throughout all the other years isn't a huge deal. These two are averages of all the years. These ones you want to make sure you have good scores all throughout the years. Stock price, honestly, you just want the last year to be really good. It's kind of the same thing with credit rating. Credit rating, you just want to have an A plus in the last year. Everything else is like, of course you want to have a good credit rating, but I've seen actually quite a few companies, they have a good, then they go down a little bit in these years, and then they go back up and they have an A plus at the very end, which is really important. Now I'll show you my Excel spreadsheet that goes over the commonalities that I found in the patterns. And then image rating. So image rating, you can see here, it's usually pretty important to have a good image rating. I found this for a lot of different companies and their patterns. They usually had a pretty good image rating, and especially in the last 3 years, because that's what you're scored on. At the end of the day, the last 3 years is what matters for image rating. Last year for credit rating, and I discussed the other three of earlier. Corporate social responsibility. I noticed that you don't need to have it's not like you need to win all these years, but I did notice that the winners usually won a couple years, at least got second. You usually want to be in this high column. I noticed that you'll usually get about 20 points in these years and then 19 in the bottom 2 years, which doesn't really make sense, but that's the patterns I've found. Please do not spend a ton of money on corporate CSR in the first couple years. I don't think it's important unless you're getting a high image rating because of it. Which, if you see here, corporate social responsibility generated from CSR expenditures, it's not that high. I've seen people spend a ton of money on this, and it's just not worth it. Bonus point awards. This I did not take into my consideration, although they are very beneficial, and this is why I got second out of my global competition. So it's very helpful, but it's not like there's really no patterns or correlations with getting these points and winning necessarily. Industry overview. Now, this is something that I'm going to go into the long-term strategy. Now, unfortunately, the FIR, and I wish I could tell you more about long-term strategy, but this video is specifically on some patterns and correlations I found in long-term strategy that you can actually use. But the FIR does not give that much data for specific winning companies to come up with like correlations and patterns. So I'm just trying to I tried figuring out what are the main things that you can do as a company to follow these patterns of winning companies. And like I said, I have an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to go over that. I'm just showing you what I kind of found. Main thing is this facility space and production equipment. And then the last thing is this financial statistics. All this is just that last year, not very important necessarily, because it's just 1 year. I want to think more long-term strategy for you, for the best strategy that I can think of, or at least commonalities. And one of them is this shares of stock outstanding. This is something you have to do pretty much every single year. You can't buy all the shares back in 1 year. So this is something they did year after year after year, most likely. So you can see a lot of them are at 15,000, which is the bottom that you can buy to. So, and then the rest of the pages, they don't give you very good data or information. So here's the gold. Here's what I found pattern-wise and correlation-wise, in my opinion, for these long-term strategies is if you look at my Excel spreadsheet, wonderful spreadsheet that I did fairly quickly, but you can see some things. These are the top 15. I just took 15 companies from the information that I showed you earlier. Here you go. These are 10-year games. If you're playing a 5-year game, I don't think this might work for you. But if you're playing a 10-year game, these are patterns. These are what all the top winning number one companies in their industry did to win the game. As you can see, long term, Asia Pacific and Latin America, building space in there and equipment. And this is, a lot of, for example, you'll have space in North America, but everybody has space in North America. I wanted to know where were companies putting their equipment long term. And as you can see, the equipment long term, almost all of it was in Asia Pacific, Latin America. There were some companies that invested in all of them, but the patterns to have a long-term strategy were focus Asia Pacific, getting that to about 15,000 or I guess probably shoot for at least 10,000 or higher. And then Latin America, this is data I'm getting from the number one companies in the world. So you probably should try. Now, like I said, of course, there's no one solid way to win in the long-term strategy. These are just patterns that I found, things that I'm suggesting that you focus on in the long term. For example, in all my videos, I can't stress enough, buy back your shares. You should be at 15,000 by year 10, or pretty dang close. All these companies, all the number one winning companies had relatively close to 15,000 shares. That is what it is. Like some, I don't know, some people might say don't worry about it. It's not a big focus. It's a pretty big focus. I mean, 13 out of 15 having, and honestly this one, so 14 out of 15 having pretty close to buying all back their shares and winning. Um, it's almost a necessity to make sure you have a good score in BSG. But like I said, unfortunately, and I know you all wanted to hear the best thing, what can I do to win XYZ? It's unfortunate it's not like that, but these are some patterns that you can take to do to hopefully win your BSG game. Um, so yeah, I'm hoping that this helps you. If it did, please like and subscribe, of course. And I'm gonna give some more tips in the future. I always try to keep my videos updated. I'm a fairly new YouTuber, and of course, I want to make sure I'm providing really good content for everybody. And if it was helpful, feel welcome to send me an email. I'll put that in the description below, and I will give you as much help as I can. But hopefully, you all get a good grade and this helps. But other than that, thank you for watching.